Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them, or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase. Hi.
Welcome to another edition of Sports Thirsty Day. Of Sports Junkies.
Are we rolling?
Yes.
This is a professional grade A production today, folks.
I know. Greg Geeson in for Sparky Pfeiffer, who is sick with the plague.
Sparky, please never get sick again.
Apparently he gave it to him. And so here we are. And this is, of course, Gery Woelfel back from his bout with the plague.
It was brutal.
Yeah,
absolutely brutal. There's something going around.
You had your week off.
Of course, I've been watching the Bucks all season, so it's about time I got sick.
Yeah. So, okay, it's been a real busy week with the Bucks. And let's start out with Larry Sanders, who you've been on the bandwagon.
The Colonel.
Yeah, to have Larry Sanders moved. You didn't like the big contract. He gets into the bar fight. He gets multiple technicals. He gets hurt.
Hey, did you forget about the dogs?
He's inconsistent. He has problems with his dogs, yes. And so they get him for smoking marijuana.
Yeah, no big deal.
Which, as Jim McElvain, when he was on, as a trainer had told him, not the worst thing in the world, because you're sitting in your hotel room and
Poor Mac.
I know.
You and Sparky, a guy makes one little comment.
No. He did not advocate this. He just said someone had said this to him, and he was repeating it. And, with all the problems Larry Sanders has when he steps out of the hotel or out of his house, to think that he's sitting in there smoking a joint, getting a good meal because he gets hungry, and then getting tired and falling asleep, not the worst idea for Larry Sanders considering everything he's been through.
Yeah, absolutely. That poor guy. Everybody's sympathetic.
No, I'm not saying you should be sympathetic. I mean everything he's been through in terms of getting into trouble.
Yeah.
The Bucks should be happy he's sitting in his hotel room half-baked, in theory.
Yes.
So, given that, now they go, and with all the problems he's had, they get him for this. It's just... there are a lot of other reasons to get rid of him. This just seems to be the cherry on top of the get rid of Larry Sanders Sunday.
Well, absolutely. I have been an advocate of getting rid of him prior to the season. And I talked to somebody in their administration, and they were saying how he's turned his life around and blah, blah, blah. And we've seen what has unfolded since then. Now the problem is nobody around the league wants him, so they got a guy with a guaranteed 4-year, $44 million contract. The only way they unload him is if they throw one of their good players in with them now. Are they going to throw in John Henson? They're going to throw in Brandon Knight, Giannis maybe, and they'll come back and say, hey, maybe we can get a lottery pick now. And they're covering up for one of the biggest blunders ever made in Bucks history, without a doubt. Drew Gooden first. It was so bad they amnestied him, okay? Bucks have never amnestied a guy, okay? Now they come along with Sanders. They're stuck with that. God knows it's been one train wreck after another. The new regime can't start soon enough.
You're not really happy with the organization right
now?
Not
at all. Like I told you earlier today, Larry Costello, the great Larry Costello, must be rolling over in his grave right now thinking what has happened to this one proud franchise. They have become the laughingstock of the NBA. Everybody knows what's happening on the court. They're not even going to get 20 wins, remotely close to 20 wins, and that was the fewest they ever won in their franchise history. And then you think of all the Sanders crap that went on off the court. It's just been a nightmarish season.
But, again, they planned for this because of the lottery. They planned... They did. I'm not sure they planned to not win 20 games.
Right.
But they didn't plan... when you started going down this road...
Right. Exactly.
In terms of using the T word, tanking.
Right.
No proof you can say that they did it.
Right.
But if you start going down and trying to improve your draft position and trying to get more balls in the lottery or whatever the system is, okay, you decide to go down there. I'm not, and if that's your plan and you're trying to rebuild, I don't have too much of a problem with that.
But you don't change it in midstream. That should have been their plan from day one during the summer and say, hey, you know what? We got to blow this thing up. We lost Jennings. We lost Ellis. We lost J.J. Redick. We're going to blow it up, and said right then and there. Instead, they go out and get Karan Butler, bless your soul, Karan, for coming back and living in purgatory for 3 months. Actually, it wasn't purgatory; it was hell. Being the good Catholic guy, I know the difference between purgatory and hell. You know, are you impressed? So you got Butler, Carlos Delfino.
Right.
You bring in O.J. Mayo. You bring in Zaza Pachulia, all veteran guys who have started in this league. They were not thinking of lottery at that point.
No.
And all of a sudden, Larry Sanders does something, the most moronic thing maybe ever in Bucks history, and their season is over. And all of a sudden, they hit the panic mode and say, "Oh, it's over. Let's go. Now it's time to."
No, wait a minute. Karan got hurt too.
Yeah,
he was out. They started real slow. And
they were very competitive.
They were competitive,
very
but the W's weren't coming.
Right.
And so your record's going down. Karan's hurt. Sanders, who is supposed to be some sort of focal point, isn't there.
Right.
He's in trouble. And some of the guys that you did sign aren't getting healthy because you signed them hurt.
Let's say Carlos Delfino. Has anybody seen Carlos Delfino?
And exactly. So I don't have a problem with them changing ideas. Because when you start that badly, and granted the whole East is bad, but when you start going down that road unintentionally, well, at that point you might as well continue going down that road and saying, okay, let's build for the future.
When you're shelling out guaranteed contracts for Carlos Delfino and O.J. Mayo, I wonder how O.J. Mayo is doing, by the way.
Yeah,
if I'm the owner of the team, my GM is gone. I'm not even waiting until the end of the season. That is ridiculous.
I'm not saying these were right moves.
And plus, we're talking about Dwight Gooden. He should be Dwight Gooden. Drew Gooden. I always call him Dwight Gooden because I once had a run-in with Dwight Gooden, but that's another story. But anyways, you spend all this money on veteran players, and all of a sudden, that you're going to have on your roster at least next year or beyond. Just a colossal blunder after blunder.
Now, they had to have been a little bit relieved when Joel Embiid announced yesterday he's going into the draft, because there were little rumors, and whether they were valid or not, I have no idea, but there were rumors coming out that Jabari Parker and Embiid were possibly going to be staying in school.
Don't you follow me on Twitter?
Yes, I do.
Said the other day that Art Tellem was going to represent all four guys. All of a sudden, the last 2 days, they started announcing coming out. Come on.
Hey, you know what? You always bet 1,000, don't you?
9.99. You been talking to Ted Davis?
Yeah. So, I think they have to be somewhat relieved, because now you see the draft beginning to take shape.
Absolutely.
As that deep draft that they were anticipating.
Sure.
And if that happens, then some of this is worthwhile. But if Wiggins was the only one coming out, they probably would have been, the fan base.
And they didn't get the number one pick.
I
mean, there's still no assurances they're going to get the number one pick. They could go down to 4.
Yeah.
And that's another thing the NBA, and I thought this a couple of years ago when Charlotte had by far the worst record in basketball, and they did not get the number one pick. And there's something wrong with the system when you have a team that bad not getting the number one pick. Now you come along with the Bucks and Philadelphia. Both those teams should get the number 1 and number 2 picks. So you can make a case that Philadelphia is by far the worst team. Everybody admits that. And they should, based on the least amount of talent, get the number 1 pick. But the Bucks could fall to 4. Philadelphia could drop to 5.
Yes.
I mean, that's absurd.
Of course it is. But on the other hand, you have a situation where teams right now are tanking for the opportunity
to get
into those, for the most chances to get 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, I mean,
they're tanking just for a chance to
absolutely.
get 1, 2, or 3.
Right.
How bad is it going to be when you see a draft like this, which by all indications is deep, and you've said it's deep,
it's a
and
good
I
draft.
listen to you and Sparky, and you have teams that are going to, if that was the case and you didn't have the lottery, I mean, as if it isn't bad enough now. It's going to be a lot worse. I mean, last night's game was a JV game. It might as well have been, you should have just said, okay, you know what, half-price tickets, half-price concessions, because this isn't really, the product on there is barely an NBA product.
And the Bucks couldn't even beat a Pacers team that didn't start their starting 5. I mean, their regular starting, it just shows you how inept this crew is. And I'm not blaming the players. The players are busting their butt off, but Just the whole setup is big.
Well, the talent isn't there. You can bust your butt off as much, but in the NBA, you got to have that talent to succeed.
Hey, one thing we have to talk about, too, is Sanders' deal. Sanders, is getting a 4-year, $44 million contract extension kicking in next year. So by having him serve the suspension this year, he saves mucho bucks. I mean, major bucks. Not 100,000, 200,000. We're talking millions, folks. If I was Larry Sanders, I would have been out clubbing, throwing champagne bottles again last night. And then on top of it, I'll give you a chance to talk. Problem. I'm not Sparky Jr.
No sense in stopping you now. There's no sense in stopping you. Just keep going.
Yeah. Then on top of it, the crack Bucks front office decides to announce that he started his suspension last night by putting it in the box score. Not on a release, not coming up and making a formal announcement to all the media that was at the game last night. A box score. Larry Sanders, along with 12 other names, not with team, NBA suspension. Nobody knows about it until after the game. And then one front office executive, when I brought it up and questioned their decision to announce it that way, he goes, "We can do whatever we want." The arrogance of this team, that is the laughingstock of the NBA, is just unbelievable.
Well, they can. I mean,
they can do it. Exactly, they can. And then and then they wonder why they're getting battered by some people in the media. Although the local media in Brewtown doesn't even know anything's going on negatively.
So, okay, if this is what's going on, so when's new ownership going to come in and change everything?
Pretty darn soon. If you're a Bucks fan, Christmas is coming up in a couple of weeks.
Do tell.
Well, next Thursday and Friday, the NBA Board of Governors are going to meet in New York. And at that time, I've been told that the sale of the Bucks will be brought up and discussed. And barring something unforeseen, it should be hammered out shortly thereafter. So the Bucks need a change. It's time for Herb to let it go. It's time to have a changeover in the front office. I mean, starting with the GM, the coach, going right down. Bucks Nation is so frustrated, so upset right now. It's almost to the point it's apathetic. They really don't care. So they need to turn this thing around 180 degrees, and hopefully that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks.
Feel better now?
No.
Okay, well...
They still got Larry Sanders on their rosters.
Sparky, come back. He needs more therapy. That should do it for another edition of Sports Junkies. Again, I'm Greg Geeson, Gery Woelfel, and we will see you next week.